viewers and listeners. We are continuing our discussion of this new book from Bristol University Press. It is entitled Horizontal Development, Shifting Power and Privilege in Aid. Please don't forget to click the link that is right in the description panel so that you can get access. Dr. Shonali, I'd like to bring you in. I don't know if I should bring you in or but either way we can just do
it. Yeah, sure. I'm happy to jump in here, and then Mikey can also chime in from her side. So one of the chapters, Thabani mentioned that many of the chapters we worked on together, but some of them really are built off of our own individual research and work that we've done over the years. So there is a chapter on digital humanitarianism, which really builds on work that I did between 2017 and 2018, but also on some of my professional work when I was a development practitioner before I ever pursued academia. So I used to work with a crowdfunding platform, which really is where my interest in researching digital humanitarianism and how everyday citizens interact with various social causes online. And so I think maybe perhaps for your students and listeners, I think at this point in time, almost everyone has interacted with some sort of crowdfunding page, whether it's someone running a marathon for charity, or they've been sent a link on WhatsApp to donate to a project or a cause, or they've seen calls for fundraisers, Just Giving, Kickstarter, all of these platforms have become very popular. And so an area of research that I've done, and which chapter 7 in our book is based on, is how nonprofit organizations and NGOs around the world use these crowdfunding platforms to actually raise money for some of their projects. And so in many ways, it's very difficult for organizations to learn how to actually talk about themselves to an online audience. So most of the time, nonprofits, particularly those based in countries in the global south, they're very used to writing grant applications, funding pro formas, log frames, all of these sorts of things. But as I'm sure we all can relate to, the way we talk about these things online, if we want a fundraising campaign to really pick up momentum online in this day and age, we can't write about it the same way that we would write in a funding application or in a 2,000 words form. So these are kind of skill sets that a lot of staff at these nonprofit organizations don't have. So one of the things that my chapter explores is how individuals and staff members at these NGOs, particularly in places where there are a lot of NGOs on the ground competing for the same funds, like in India. Kenya is another big example. Cambodia, where Mikey has done so much work, is a big example, where there are so many NGOs. You walk down the street, you see 15 different NGO offices. They're all competing for the same money. So how do they actually attract online donors to give $20, $100, $1,000. And so actually what you find is that they are expending a huge amount of their own personal social capital trying to fundraise, right? They're asking their friends, their family members, they're asking those friends and family members to also spread the word and, about a particular project or a fundraising campaign. So what we realize is that there's only a certain amount of times that any one of us can ask our friends and family and our close contacts, colleagues for money before we start to feel kind of awkward about it, before it starts to maybe erode some of our social relationships that we have with others. So it really, it looks at the kind of behind the scenes when you see a crowdfunding campaign with its nice images and the fundraising page. The chapter really looks at what's behind the scenes there, right? It seems always that fundraising online is a great thing to do, and it's an easy way to make money for social projects and development projects, but there's actually a huge amount of social capital, intellectual capital, digital capital that goes into making those fundraising pages and making those fundraising campaigns a success. And I'm sure that anyone who has run a fundraiser before for a student group or a faith-based group or any of their community initiatives that they care about, I'm sure they can relate to this, and they know that it is a really big challenge to raise money even for the best of causes in this day and age. So that's something we really try to explore in the book. So I think that relates quite a lot to what Mikey is going to say. So I'll hand it over to her now.
I think listeners or viewers have probably a good sense of sort of the more in-depth cases, examples, a sense of what horizontal development might mean in practice. And I should stress that we're not thinking of horizontal development as a single mode or thing or category, far from it. And I think you got the sense from both Shonali's and Thabani's examples that, what they have in common are ways of connecting with others to provide assistance that are not driven by, an institutional or sort of a organizational framework, but instead, sort of they find their ways in multitudes of sort of sometimes under the radar, sometimes informally, sometimes over the internet. And to just give you a sense of the spread and scope of our chapters and case studies, we also talk about faith-based networks. We talk about volunteerism and its potential for horizontal development. And one thing I'm particularly keen on is what horizontal development means for the localization debate in aid and development. And for those who may have not come across this, localization simply means, or has been a pledge by a number of formal aid organizations to devolve up to 25% of their budgets to local partner organizations. And that commitment was made quite a number of years ago, and I think as of today it has not been honored, only very partially. And the reasons for that are perhaps obvious, and we don't need to go into these. But I think the argument that we're making in this book is that aid does not need to be localized, because in many ways it is local already. And other people, I think Maurice Kahn, a prominent sort of campaigner and practitioner, has made precisely this point, and we're picking this up and illustrating it. That one of the problems with development is the assumption that local people come second, that they're not quite capable, plus a very fuzzy definition of what local even means. And in our case, in all of our research cases and work we've done ourselves, it is abundantly clear that people who live where things happen, also known as local, are not only the first responders in disasters, they have initiatives, visions, they make collaborations, they create and are part of networks which facilitate research flows. So I think our ambition, no less, is to really let go of the idea that aid needs to be localized in a top-down movement, and rather understand that people on the ground are already doing a lot of things, and if others want to help, they do best get understanding what it is they're trying to do, and then asking them how they can or what they can do to help. Okay, so that's sort of some of our chapter contents and case studies, which I hope gives watchers some idea of what we're trying to do.
That's great. Thank you very much for that. Let me bring Dr. Thabani with my last question for you. What's the target audience of the book? I know you had a target audience when you were writing the book, and I also do know that you have a target audience now that the book is out. I could try and guess what the target audience could be. I may just say that I think development practitioners need to have this book. I think so. But you can go ahead and describe what you think is the target audience for this book.
Yeah, thanks. And you're quite right that development practitioners are part of the target audience for this book. But I just wanted to start by perhaps reiterating what Mikey mentioned at the very beginning, which is how this book came to be, that, we sort of we're in this situation where students, we're constantly asking the question, what is the point of development studies? Because development appears to be such a flawed endeavor, where people, so the question is, where should we focus, right? Where should we put our efforts? Those kinds of questions obviously would be useful to answer for students, for scholars, practitioners, policymakers, and indeed public audience. The book itself is not written in any complicated verbose language. It's quite accessible, so for anyone who's interested, who wants to pick up a copy, they should be able to perhaps get through it without necessarily having to use a dictionary or Googling words trying to figure out what they mean. But it's definitely for all audience, and we know that there's a lot of discontent felt by many due to this critique, basically, and sometimes unconvincing practice of aid, typically characterized by this idea of power, so aid flowing from the north to the south, also who holds this particular knowledge, right? Including resources that seem to always follow this trajectory, which is north to south. And the hope is that the book can perhaps help illuminate that development is not just about these north-south flows, but includes other forms that are based on these very different aspects that we've been discussing, so peer-to-peer variations that have been part of people's lives for a very long time, and some of these forms actually predate development as we understand it now, so the contemporary conventional development. So we sort of critically document how these forms of aid function and interrogate the roles of power within these particular forms as well as privilege. So at the same time, making them more visible to these groups of people, and perhaps to provide a way forward for this supposed critic-driven impasse. So to summarize, students will very much appreciate the book, scholars, practitioners, policymakers, as well as the general public.
That is awesome. Thank you very much, viewers and listeners. Those of you who would want to get a copy of this book, Horizontal Development, Shifting Power and Privilege in Aid, please do not forget to click the link that is right in the description panel. You can get direct access to Bristol University Press in order to get a copy. I'm very much happy to have you all on this platform today, and thank you so much for sharing about this book.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely.
That is nice. Thank you.